It's 3:05. Okay, so hey, good afternoon, everyone. Joya Goodrum here with the McMinnville Chamber. Today, we're going to be talking about cybersecurity. We've got a couple of different guests to talk about risks and some of the, things that we need to be thinking of as, in this brave new world that we are living through. So I'm going to turn it over to Chuck Dornan with Alexonet. He's going to be our speaker first, and then we've also got Leslie Kainoa and Chris McLaren. And so I'll turn it over to you. Thanks for being here, everyone.
So I guess I'll do the introductions and then I'll hand it over to Leslie. So let me share my screen. If I share the right one. There we go. So Leslie Kainoa, this is a pretty impressive stack of credentials here, Leslie.
Oh, well, thank you.
She's been 19 years cybersecurity. She works for CISA, which is an agency of the Department of Homeland Security. So she's going to talk about things that she's seeing in the area, in the Pacific Northwest and Oregon, and what their intelligence gathering, what they're seeing. And then we've got Chris McLaren, who works for Hagan Hamilton, who is he sells local insurance. He sells cybersecurity insurance. So he'll be talking about trends he's seeing in the industry and what we can expect maybe coming down the road. So with that, then of course there's me, one of Alexonet. We're an MSSP, MSP managers. Mostly we're pivoted to the cybersecurity world 2 years ago, and it's been great. Been learning a lot. Best-selling author, partner of the FBI, Department of Security, Department of Energy, and I'm CJS, which is FBI trade that we support the municipality. So with that, so those are the presenters today. I'm going to hand it over to Leslie.
Okay, thank you, Chuck.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
My name is Leslie Kainoa. I am the cybersecurity advisor for the state of Oregon, and I work for the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. There's lots of securities in the title and in the agency name because it's that important, right? It's really important to focus on that. So I am going to, Chuck, I can't share my screen until you.
There you go.
There we go. Thank you.
Yep.
Window.
I think I have to make you, Leslie, a co-host. So give me a second here while I make you a co-host. And let me just see how I do this.
Are you able to see my?
Yes.
I can't. Oh, okay, good.
Can you see that? The
Yes.
current ransomware trends?
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I wanted to talk about the current ransomware trends that we're seeing here locally. Okay, so this is not within the nation. This is not within our region, but this is here locally within our state. There's a lot going on as far as ransomware and threats and all that. Just wanted to focus on these top three ransomware. Well, ransomware is probably one of the most prolific ransomware variants that is in the wild right now. And it is a ransomware that uses multiple infection vectors, such as phishing, social engineering, different types. And the most recent attacks that you may have heard of, if you follow ransomware and cybersecurity trends, it's been affecting a lot of governments. So the trend is looking to be more of a attacking the election infrastructure. So the government election infrastructure portion of the government, a lot of schools have been affected by royal ransomware. So not just colleges and universities, higher education, but a lot of K-12, also school districts and individual schools and healthcare organizations. So I've noticed that healthcare organizations were getting targeted first, then it moved over to the academics, then it moved over to the government. So there are trends that we're able to follow and able to see, but that's not, and these three organizations or these three sectors are not the only sectors that are being targeted by ransomware. It's everything across the board. So keep that in mind. I'll talk a little bit more about this, about royal ransomware. The other one is Lockbit. So Lockbit is a really old variant of ransomware. It's Lockbit 3 that is currently being exploited right now. So it's here in the state, and then Katakurt is the other variant. It's not as prevalent as well, but it's here. It's in our state. And if you can see my screen, and I apologize for the really tiny text, I just wanted to show everyone what the indicators of rural ransomware looks like. So this is the README text that you will find within the Windows file systems, or your Linux file systems. It's called the README text, but when you open it up, you can actually not the README text, but then when you get a text, you can find this within the file systems. You'll see this note. Sometimes it'll splash up on your screen too, as hey, this is a real ransomware. Give us all your money. All right, so real ransomware, more on that. So 2/3 of it is due to phishing, right? So people are being, or the ransomware variant is using phishing mostly, but it also uses some remote desktop applications. So they use remote desktop vulnerabilities to access these computers or these systems to gain access and lock the files. So real ransomware is again ransomware. It encrypts files. The threat actors, so the real ransomware group, will ask for payment for the decryption key. One of the things about real ransomware and the other ransomware groups nowadays is that they'll employ what's called double or triple extortion, where they will encrypt the files. You'll give them money to get the decryption key, but it will either, number one, be the wrong decryption key, and you'll have to ask for another one. They'll demand more payment, or they will give you the decryption key, but they will turn around and tell you that they need more money because they're holding your data ransom, and they want you to pay them more money, so more funds, Bitcoin or cash, or any sort of payment to not publicly release the data that they have of yours. It is a common tactic. It's increasingly common tactic, I should say. But one of the trends for real ransomware, one of the ways that real ransomware group acts, is that they don't maintain that persistence in the network. So they like to go in, hit your networks, grab the information, grab the data that they need, and they leave. You'll see that other ransomware variants, other ransomware groups will maintain a sort of persistence. So it is a little bit more difficult to remediate those infiltrations. The next one is Katakurt. So this one is not sector industry specific. It's just it seems like they target the low hanging fruit, right? What they find the easiest target, and they exploit the easiest targets. So this one, if you look at the second to the last bullet point, they use AnyDesk. AnyDesk is a remote desktop software. So it's a remote desktop exploit. So that being said, right, you want to make sure that you have your remote desktop access locked down. You want to make sure your credentials are strong. You use strong passwords. MFA is even better. Don't use default passwords by all means. Please don't use that default passwords. All right. And I know we have just a little bit of time, so I'm going to run through Lockbit fairly quickly. Lockbit 3.0. It's targeting critical infrastructure and independent businesses. This ransomware, so the Lockbit ransomware group, they're targeting independent businesses, meaning that they're the smaller businesses, right? The mom and pop operations. These are the ones that don't have a lot of resources, especially financial resources. These businesses are being targeted. They're getting hit. They're not able to pay the ransom. Their data is locked, or even uploaded or released into the dark web or to the public. So it's very damaging, reputational wise, with this for businesses to get hit by this Lockbit ransomware. And again, with the request for the ransom and the payment, it's it's very damaging, right? And this one also exfiltrates the sensitive data and holds it hostage and holds it for ransom. Sometimes, depending on the actual person that is that uses this lockbit variant, they may not even ask for payment for ransom payment for the data. They will just release that data, uh, and there's really no indication on who's gonna release the data, what they're gonna do, et cetera, et cetera. It's just really the luck of a draw, whether or not you get your data back, whether or not they, release it. So keep in mind that all three of these, the most common method of infection is through phishing and social engineering attempts. And one of the things though that I wanted to, I'm going to stop the slideshow so I can see everybody. So one of the things to keep in mind though with saying that you have to be careful about phishing emails, don't click on links, right? You have to be careful about social engineering attempts. These attempts, these phishing emails, even the social engineering attempts are becoming very, very sophisticated. It's becoming increasingly harder to detect and to protect against because of the increased use of the AIs, the AI tools. ChatGPT is one of the more accessible AI tools available right now because it's free. You can access it on the internet. If you can ask it, you can do that search criteria, ask it to write you a phishing email, and it'll spit something out within 30 seconds. The language, everything about it is really sophisticated, and this is what the threat actors are using. So one of the things that I like to suggest, right, not recommend because I can't make recommendations. I'd like to suggest that if you're really concerned about it, if you're in the area where you can do threat hunting or where you know somebody that, and you can recommend to a threat hunter, use this ChatGPT, use these AIs to create these phishing emails, to create, different types of malware packages, because what you can use those for is you can use those to help you detect what the threat actors are doing. You can use this to help detect that traffic coming into your network. So, you can not necessarily get ahead of the game, but at least you can keep up with them, right? So they won't leave you in the dust. Okay. I don't know how much time I took. I went through
You're
that fairly
fine.
quickly.
Yeah.
Okay.
You got a couple of minutes if you want to take it.
Okay. And a couple other, so since I have more time to talk, yay, I'm going to use that. So best practices, right? So how do we mitigate against that? In addition to using the threat actors tools against them, there's other things you can do with best practices, such as make sure that you're using secure access controls. So if you're using a username and password, make sure that password is secure, right? It's at least 15 character longs. It's something that you've heard repeatedly, and I'm repeating it too, right? 15 character longs. The different, uppercase, lowercase numbers, special character. Don't use repeating character sets. Don't use dictionary terms. Because again, with the increase in computing power, with the increase in AI, it's becoming easier and easier to crack a password, right? To brute force a password. And in addition to that, the threat actors have been scraping passwords from the web, from different companies, from different websites, and they create these lists. So in addition to those dictionary lists, they create password lists. And you can get a password list from the dark web. Anybody can get onto the dark web. You can buy a password list for what, $1, $2 maybe. It's very inexpensive, and chances are your password will be, one of your weaker passwords will be on that list. And because of that, a lot of passwords are immediately, exploitable, crackable. And which is why we recommend now to use different passwords for different websites. So, right, so how are you going to do that? Well, you can use password store. Make sure you keep that key for the password store secure. You can use passphrases, which is probably the easiest way to remember different passwords. So passphrase is a typically it's a phrase or sentence that you create to in place of a password. So it's many characters long. And a lot of or most password generate or any place that uses a password that you'll be able to do a multi-character, right? So it's anything longer than 20 up to 256, and I think Windows has done it, set it to unlimited password length now. But so there's options, but one of the best options is to use MFA, multi-factor and authentication. So if you have the availability, the technologically available, if you have the financial means to employ MFA, please do so. It is probably one of the more secure ways of protecting your accounts, protecting your credentials and information and your users. Do it. It's recommended. You may have heard about some MFA vendors being exploited and hacked, but really that was their back end. So their actual technology and their keys for MFA were not compromised. Yes, I'm not misspeaking. So they were not compromised. It was just the back end, the company uh, that was compromised. So use MFA. It's a good technology. And I checking the time and I'm good. And that's all I want to, I don't want to start anything else because we can go on for hours. So those are my high points that I really wanted to touch on. And so does anybody have any questions?
I have a quick question. One
Yes.
thing I noticed, that's more of a statement, is you're talking about data being released from when there's a compromise. Oftentimes, these people will reach out to the individuals and say, hey, your data is in my hands. If you pay me, I won't release it. So instead of, they're actually extorting the company they took the data from, and then they're actually extorting the individuals as well.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. Yes, and it's just such a, it's such a violation for them, right? It's really hard to deal with. It's hard to react appropriately. Um, and one more thing I wanted to mention, that if you are exploited, if something happens to a company, even to you individually, there are means to protect yourself, to get help. One of it is to report it to CISA.gov. If you go to the CISA.gov website, on the homepage there's a link to report ransomware, to report malicious activity, and there's the FBI website. So IC3 is the site to report cybercrime on. So either way, it will come. In fact, I will probably get notified, and I work side by side with FBI with the victim support. I don't do investigations, but I help with the support, with outreach, with information and collaboration.
All right, thanks, Leslie. Oh, great.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll move on to Chris.
See if I can share my screen here. All right, does everybody see it? All right, just kind of dovetailing into what Leslie is talking about with just the risks that are out there. You have options, and and that's what I'm going to talk about today. So I work for Hagan Hamilton Insurance Solutions. We've been in business since 1910. We have over 12,000 clients. We've been 100 best in Oregon for the last 13 years. We have about 60 employees that are all insurance professionals, and about 12,000 clients. And we help those clients identify risks and help mitigate them. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So the first thing you start out with when you're a business owner is, you're thinking about, what am I going to do to keep my business going, right? So you have already a lot of things that you're managing. You're managing the operations, the sales, your inventory, your employees. Well, there's another thing that you're managing too, and that is the risk of that business. And you're looking for, how do I protect this company? How do I help it grow? And keep it from financial harm. And you do that by, identifying and analyzing and controlling risks and at the lowest possible cost. That's what risk management is. So whether you like it or not, you are doing it. You are a risk manager. There's two different ways to finance risk. You can either retain it. You can say, hey, I don't need to transfer this. I don't need to buy a policy, or you can transfer it. So you can retain the risk. I'm willing to take it. I'm willing to keep going, or, I want to try to figure out a way to help reduce my liability, reduce the potential harm that could come to my business. And you can do that in one of two ways. You can buy insurance, or you can find a contract. It just kind of depends on what the risk is. But there are some non-insurance options. And again, 10,000 feet, just very, very quickly. From a cyber perspective, one of the things that you want to do when you're analyzing your risk is you want to have an idea of what your data inventory is. What do you have stored electronically? What kind of security do you have around that data? And what is your digital assets worth? What does it look like? And it's not just data, but it's all your digital assets. So keep in mind that you might have proprietary information. You might have policies and procedures. It's not just, some customer data set. You might have graphics, right? Things like that. And then we want to look at your appetite for risk. So what is the potential harm? What's your capacity for dealing with a potential claim? Is there public support if you were to be hacked? What's the risk there? I mean, if you have health data, would the public support you if you did get breached, right? Or would there be some sort of retaliation? And then what kind of systems and regulations do you have? Do you have regulations around the data that you collect? And do you have systems in place to protect that data? So those are all things that help form your appetite. So over the first quarter, you might be surprised to see what kind of claims were actually filed against cyber policies. So this is really interesting. It may seem surprising to you, but it's not, because the bad actors are going after the most vulnerable systems that are out there. Manufacturing, construction, charities, nonprofits, wholesale distributors, these types of companies are, we're seeing a lot of claims come in. And this is just over the first quarter of this last year. And this data is from one of our largest brokers that, has access to hundreds of carriers that provide cyber insurance. So that's what this slide is. The type of claims that we're seeing within those industries, number one is fraudulent payment. So social engineering, ransomware, all the things that Leslie alluded to earlier. These are all the claims that can be covered by insurance, but this is what's happening. Oh, also, yeah, I was doing some more research, and Leslie's right. I mean, the ransomware as a service is, this is an actual business, right? A business model overseas, and whether or not you want to call them terrorists or just, I don't know, criminals. This is a professional business, and they are using technology to hack into your system and to hold it hostage and threaten you so that you can pay them. And they are getting paid. It's a moneymaker for them. And so so everybody's at risk. It's definitely a threat. All right, so why do you want to buy cyber insurance? Like, do you have it? Why do you want it? Well, the loss is really expensive, number one. So cyber insurance helps reduce that cost to you if you do experience a loss. Also, the risk is increasing. We're seeing an increase um, in the desire to penetrate different systems and steal data. I mean, it's growing. The average cost, this is again from the IBM report, the data breach report this year, said in the States, $4.35 million is the average data breach cost. That's a lot of money. And you might be thinking, well, that's not going to impact me. Well, let me tell you something. In 2019, 43% of all data breaches involved small business. If you have less than 500 employees, which everybody probably in McMinnville has, or you're kind of at that higher end, you're still considered a small business comparatively to the nation. The average cost was $2.98 million. That's a lot of money. I don't know of a lot of people that have that hanging around, but if you do, you can consider that, retaining that risk. Another way to look at it too is looking at your records, your digital assets, and the records that if you look at like a per breached record cost, and this is back in 2019, this was it's about $164 per breached record. So you're most likely not going to emerge from a situation financially unscathed here. I mean, you're going to have some pain. Everybody's a target. What are you responsible for? What's at risk? Okay, let me just go over a few direct costs, just so that you have an idea of what it is that happens when there is an attack. You've got to handle the immediate damages and repairs. You've got to pay the ransom costs potentially, or of the ransomware attack. You got to provide potentially the free credit monitoring. You have to staff up for customer service to handle potential phone calls from irate customers. You've got to offer, or you might have to offer free or discounted products or services. You have to pay fines. You may need to hire IT security consultants. You may need to hire a risk manager. You may need to hire lawyers. You definitely will probably have to hire lawyers. Physical security consultants, auditors, management consultants. I mean, list goes on, and that's just direct costs. What about indirect costs? What about morale, right, of your team? What about the reputational risk of your business? These are all things that are a part of the breach. It's not just the financial aspect to it, although that's huge, right? So that's what's at risk. Let me go over just briefly, like what's in a policy. What do you need to look for if you're interested in getting one? You've got two different pieces of the policy that is going to come into play. One is the third party liability coverage. In layman's terms, that's like when somebody else is harmed, right, by this thing happening to you, you're going to have this duty to defend. This is what I call like the duty to defend your defense. Who's going to pay for that defense? Well, your insurance will step in, pay for defense for you to fight against, your regulatory issues, you're being sued by other people because of the harm that they've experienced. You're going to have wrongful acts, defamation, piracy, you name it. These are the things that you want to make sure that you have at a minimum. But you also have first party coverages, which is what happens to you. What directly do you get back, right? Because you've lost maybe your computer. So you're going to want a new one. So you want to make sure that you have some sort of coverage in there for computer replacement. What about the funds that you lost from this inadvertent transfer, right? This fraudulent transfer that happened. You want coverage to help protect you for that. That is getting paid back to you. You are the first party. Service fraud, again, same thing. You can get, we want to make sure that this is in there. Same thing with your digital assets. You're going to need coverage for the cost to replace, restore, recreate your digital assets that are damaged or missing. What about the money that you lost during this interruption? You're going to want to make sure that you have coverage there too. So if you're the type of business that would lose money while your system is down, there is a coverage for that within the cyber policy. What about the extortion, paying for what you're being extorted? Yes, the cyber will cover that as well. Response, public relations, reputation repair. Yes, cyber can do that. It can cover those response costs, legal fees, advisors, whatever notification you have to provide to your customers, credit monitoring. How much does it cost? I kind of did a swag here because I've seen it all over the place, but I'm seeing, your monoline coverage, which is just your standard standalone cyber policy, is going to cost you anywhere from $1,000 to $7,500 a year. Now, there are a number of different factors that go into that, and it can go up, it might even go down a little bit, but that's kind of the general swag that I'm seeing. But the industry type, the amount of limits that you want, how big your business is and how much revenue you're bringing in, your current network security, the type of sensitive data that you have, the amount of the deductible or what you're going to self-insure, that you're basically in your own retention, what you're willing to pay out of pocket, and your claims history all go into creating the premium. So if you want higher limits, you're probably going to pay a little bit more. If you are in an industry that handles a lot of sensitive data, or you have customers that are prone to sue you, you're going to pay a little bit more. If you want a real high deductible, let's say you said, hey, I'm willing to pay the first $50,000 of this cyber breach, and anything over that I want covered up to $1 million, you might pay a little less. I did want to touch briefly on kind of the rider that a lot of times you might get offered from your insurance agent on your GL policy. So usually when you're at renewal, or if you're getting a general liability policy, you might be offered some, what I call it, like throw-in coverage, like some potential add-ons or riders, I've heard it called. Those limits are typically pretty low, but at least it's something. And usually that means the premium's pretty low too. So anywhere from like $350 to $2,000, you can add, your cyber rider to your policy. The one thing I would stress about the rider or the throw-in coverage, they're not underwriting it the same way typically that a monoline cyber policy would do it. So you're not going to get the same type of coverage that you would from a monoline policy, from a true cyber standalone policy. So you're just going to want to be very careful about, or at least know exactly what it is that you're purchasing when you do get that. But it is something to consider, and it is an option for you. The main thing that you want to do, if you're looking at mitigating your risk or transferring this risk to a policy, you're going to want to discuss some things with your agent. First of all, talk to an insurance agent about this. This is not something you necessarily want to do online. I don't know a lot of places you can go online and just purchase it, but I think there are places you can go online and just purchase your own policy. but just make sure that you're looking at deductibles, you're looking at the sublimits for each of the different types of coverage that I talked about on the third and first party coverages. You might say, oh, I got $1 million policy, but it may not be in 1 million for social engineering. They might have a lower limit if it's that particular type of claim. So keep that in mind. The other thing that you want to look at is your system and business requirements that the company is needing to give you the policy. So they might say, hey, we'll give you this policy, but we need you to have multi-factor authentication. We need you to pass a penetration test. We need this, that, or the other thing. We need an incident response plan. Now, every carrier does it different. Some carriers require this before they issue the policy. Some say, hey, we'll take your word for it. We believe that if you said that you have this, great. We believe you, it's fine. But just remember that with somewhere within that 50-page document that you're not going to read, might be a provision that says, hey, but if you don't have those provisions you said you did, those you don't have those that required MFA, we're not going to pay the claim. So when you do pay the claim and then they find out later that, and they will test later, they'll go, well, you said you had multi-factor authentication, but you don't, then we're going to deny the claim. And so that's another thing you want to look at. That's why you want to make sure, and I'd advocate talking to a specific agent that you trust on that. So know what you're purchasing. Just because you think you've got a coverage doesn't mean you're actually covered. And that is what I have. I'd be happy to answer any other questions. I'm happy to help provide. This is what I write every day. And we have, gosh, I think I have about 12 different cities and public entities that I also write. You know, we are looking to expand their cyber coverage as well. And so this is something that I do all the time. I'm happy to help. Any questions? Hopefully that wasn't too dry.
That's actually pretty good. There's a few things in there I didn't really know. Great. All right, well, if we don't have any questions, I guess we'll move on to B. Get started here. Give me a minute here. Oops. It's covered by screens. I can't things are going here. Let me clear my screen out. All right. How's that? So you see that? All right. So, and going over what Leslie was talking about and what Chris was talking about, we're a managed security service provider. We go through, we do pretty comprehensive cybersecurity risk assessment, show you where the holes are, we present ways to cover those holes. We generally will look at your insurance policy to see what they're asked about. For cybersecurity refers to protection of computer systems, networks, and data from authorized access and damage. As you see, some of those costs are unexpected, like having to replace hardware, which most people don't even think about that. So we're safeguards and some digital assets against cyber threats, viruses, malware. So some of the things that we ask is, does anybody know the difference between a breach and a compromise? So what it is a breach is when your systems have been infected and data is stolen. Compromise is somebody's been in, but there's been no data stolen, nothing malicious has been happened, nothing's been ransomware or encrypted, nothing's been destroyed. And we ask a lot of these businesses, how concerned are you about being hacked? Surprisingly, and Leslie kind of tested this, a lot of them don't think, they think they're too small, that they're not going to be the target. And like Chris was saying, Leslie, that smaller businesses are the target because they don't have the things in place. You don't have the security protocol, or you don't know about the security protocol. There's a few simple things that you can put in place that are really free. Two-factor authentication, like this. That's free. That's a no cost. And surprisingly, a lot of people fight us on it. They don't want to turn that on because it's too much of an inconvenience. You know, security is inconvenient, but the outcome, if you don't implement security, could be catastrophic. You know, if you have money in the bank, they're coming after you. But if you lost all your money, would you be able to recover? Would you be able to stay in business? I mean, like I said, if you've got money in the bank, you're a target. Doesn't matter. All these systems are automated. They're bots that are putting this stuff out. These people just sit back and collect the reward. But this is an actual business email compromise, BC. These are attacks, and this is actually we pulled this from one of our clients that we protect. These are attacks. This is just for the first quarter of this year, and you can see the attacks that come from all around the world. So we will put things in place and lock it down where we only allow certain geographical locations to access, depending on what they're doing business. If they're not doing any business outside the United States, we lock it down. And then we have respond modules that respond. So things go off in the one night, send us. So a lot of people don't really see the attacks. They kind of bury their head in the sand because, you know, it's something that's kind of hard to see. It's not really tangible. I'm sure there's people in here that at least know somebody's been attacked, falling for a phishing email, falling for the gift card scam. I mean, even the home computers. I've known some people that personally been fallen for. So, cyber attacks. This is the cyber reality. Option one, you do nothing, like Chris was saying. You know, the option, lose everything, go out of business. Roll the dice. Option two, at least have a backup plan. If you were to go down, or if something were to happen, then how quickly can you recover? You have documentation so that if you're away, your employees or somebody you appoint, go to that document, get things back up and running. Or an option three is have a good incident response plan, be ready to recover within minutes. Incident response plan is, again, it's a little more glorified as a backup. It's on the stack of tools we have. We virtualize a lot of servers, things like that. So if you go down, we can have you back up running within minutes. And with the IR plan is if you have insurance, you know, you go through the steps. The first call is probably going to be insurance company. Second call is probably going to be, or first call is probably going to be to your IT department. Second call is going to be to your insurance company, and your third phone call is probably going to be to your lawyer. Because you're going to need a lawyer. There's no doubt about that. And the rules are getting tighter. You have to start reporting these incidents. So these are just some of the local areas just in the last year and a half that have been breached that have made the news. So, you know, and it's sad because, you know, a lot of these people, including me, we do a lot of things to protect our data that is out there. So a lot of these companies, they put profits before security, and that's just a sad fact. Or they don't follow. Like Chris said, you know, I've got two-factor turned on. Well, then they turn on the two-factor, get their policy, then they turn off two-factor. 94% of the threats or damage can be controlled by just importing or turning on two-factor authentication. That's probably the single easiest thing, and it costs you zero. So this is what the attacks used to look like. Your files always got encrypted. You get this little ticker with a blockchain down for the Bitcoin where it's in the ransom. You pay the ransom, you know, it's a 50-50 shot that it's actually going to work. I mean, they're criminals. They can just take your money and you're out. So we talk about this, and we talk about things going to the dark web. Because now, because they should just encrypt your data and leave it on your machine. and wait to get paid. Now what they do is they steal the data. They may encrypt it, but what they're doing now to find out that's just too difficult. We'll just steal the data and then we'll get the people to pay. We don't even have to encrypt it. Because most people have backup. So this is where all your data goes on the dark web. These are actual screenshots of the dark web I went on and grabbed. You can see gift cards, Visa cards, PayPal accounts. Over here, there's cash machine, bank accounts that actually have a balance in it. What they typically do is they sell those bank accounts for a percentage of what's actual money in there. So got $50,000, they might sell for 10%. And then it's up to you when you purchase it, get that money in. Again, these are all criminal organizations. They're not just some guy locked in the basement anymore. These criminal organizations, they have HR departments, they have recruiters, they have 401ks, and it's a regular job. So they're actually actively recruiting on some of the job sites because it's so hard to prosecute or for them to get caught. We've seen somewhere that says if you work for Nike, Microsoft, or the big companies, contact us. We'll give you USB. You get started in the machine. We'll give you $50,000. I mean, and this is pre-COVID. I wonder how many people, because we're out of a job because of COVID, thought about doing it. And then this is another actual screenshot as well. Financial services are out there, commercial services, even drugs. Chris was talking about ransomware as a service. They have that, or you can even just bypass that and just pay a hacker. This guy right here, he said, go destroy anybody's life. And this is one of thousands of them out there on the dark web. These people, I mean, again, it's all about money. They don't care. They don't care if they hurt anybody. They don't care what impact it is. It's all about the money. Matter of fact, it's a lot of the big organizations are going to ransom or what they call exploitation of your data, or because it's just easier. It's the risk of them getting caught versus selling drugs is minimal. It's actually the insurance companies are calling it extortion. And what they do now is they double dip. So they'll steal the data, they'll contact, say, your doctor's office and say, hey, we've got your data. What are you willing to pay to get it back? And if the doctor doesn't respond, then they start contacting the patient. And the first instance we saw this was the Allison over in Newburgh, Oregon, where their data got stolen. The bad actors threw up a website and put all of the employees and the people that stayed there, their information out there, and asked them, sent them emails saying, hey, we've got your data. What do you want to do? So that was the first case of that. The FBI watched that, and that started to become commonplace. So no longer, if you get breached, can you hide it? 3 to 4% of businesses report getting breached. Now it's out in the open, so everybody's going to know. So you can't hide it anymore. That's the best thing to do is protect yourself. So here we go. 61% of the hacks are used by employee credentials. Again, this is what Leslie was talking about. People using the same password over. This is called credential stuffing. What they'll do is you buy that list, like Leslie said, and then they'll go through and they will just hammer on the site. Hopefully that list of 1 million or so cracked passwords or credentials is going to get into an account. That happens with LifeLock. I just did a presentation and I looked into it. It's called credential stuffing. LifeLock got breached that way. LifeLock didn't get breached. It was the people that signed up used the same password over and over and over. It's just the luck of the dice. And they didn't implement two-factor authentication on LifeLock. So remember, no matter how good your passwords are, two-factor authentication is the second step, and everybody started to require that. Everything we do is two-factor. All the websites we go through, everything. And if it's an app you put on your phone, and we just saw that now they're making hardware devices. There's actually an actual ring that you can wear that will do a two-factor. So that's all that technology is coming out. So, and most hackers are out there. They sit on your network. They'll sit and watch 4 months, sometimes up to a year. And they'll look, and if you've got an insurance policy, they'll encrypt all your data, throw your insurance policy up there and say, why don't you just pay the ransom? You've got this policy to pay. 60% of the businesses will go out of business in 6 months after a breach. A lot of them just can't afford it. Or they think it's just cheap, I'll close shop and open up somewhere else. But then we're starting to see a trend now with class action lawsuits. There's actually a lawyer up in Portland that specializes in is actively advertising. That, if you belong to a company that's been breached, contact me, and we'll file a class action lawsuit. So not only do you have to worry about the cleanup of the breach, now you've got to worry about ramifications after the breach. Just remember, no one is too small to be hacked. You're only too small to make the news. This is the Oregon data breach reporting that you could get off the website of the Department of Justice. It actually spells out. We give this to our customers when we go and do their cybersecurity risk assessment, kind of hand this out to them so they kind of know. A lot of them think just because I don't have any data because I'm not a healthcare clinic. It's not that. It's the personally identifiable information, HR records, anything that can separate you from the crowd. First name, last name, and an address. First name, last name, driver's license, social security number. The combination of things that can actually separate you out of the crowd. That's PII data, and you've got to protect that just as much as if you were at any patient. How do you want to manage your risk? A lot of people think, oh, head in the sand, or I'm too small, or we'll deal with it when it happens. And then when it happens, they have no idea what to do. Again, there it is. Two-factor authentication is the number one most cost-effective thing you can implement. And like, again, it's free. We can't stress that enough. It is free. People just refuse to do it. Don't store your passwords in your browser. You get breached. That's the first place the bad actors go to. If they retrieve that file, it's got all your passwords in it. And once they get that, then they can start bouncing into all your accounts. So use, like Leslie said, use KeyPass, Keeper, anything that's going to, you've got one master password to get you into a database manager that's fully encrypted. Don't use an Excel spreadsheet. We've seen that as well. They'll steal and label it passwords because they'll steal that. They probe your network and they look for things before they encrypt. So keep that in mind. The other thing too, like Liz, you talked about, is phishing. That's the big thing right now. They're moving away from getting into your networks, encrypting your data, phishing. We see these trends. It's like what's old is new, what's new is old. So the way we teach all of our customers is called the SLAM method: sender, the links, attachment, and message. And like Leslie said, with the advent of AI, the messages are getting much better. They're no longer broken English. That's usually a good indication. So what I've got here is I've got an example. This was a phishing email I got. Well, one, I don't have QuickBooks. I haven't counted it. And if you look at the very top, where it says bill copy, mail.ru, it came from Russia. I'm not doing any business. So those are indications that this is a phishing email. So there's factors. You know, we trade all of our customers on that monthly. Matter of fact, when I renewed my cyber insurance, that was one of the questions they asked me, was how often are my employees trained? We're trained every day. So this is what we offer: phishing training. It's a gamified thing. So you can play with other people in the office. We actually encourage our customers to maybe every quarter give out an Amazon gift card. Just keep people interactive and working. Again, insurance companies are pushing for this. They want to see that you're training your employees, because right now, like Leslie was saying, that is the number one threat right now is the phishing. How do you want to protect your data? Is your data at risk? This is what Chris was talking about with your policy. We've got software to go out there, it'll scan your network. And like this example here. Now, these are grossly overestimated numbers. These are numbers that say, if you were to hire a lawyer and all the credit monitor, all the cleanup, this isn't what the market value of that data is. It's going to cost you, like this said, most breaches are $4.5 million, $4.9 million. It's going to cost you. We can reduce that risk. We've already reduced the risk for this one customer 97%. We brought it down to $139,000. And then the software we can load on laptops. If you've got remote users, the laptop gets stolen. It's not supposed to keep anything on there. But if it doesn't stolen, you say, look, there's only $10,000 in it. So you're covered by your insurance. So this is another tool that we use to reduce risk. Our motto, because we live in such a nasty world, is trust no one, verify everyone. Just because with the advent of the dark AI, these Zoom calls, boy, that might not even be her. That could be potentially a bad actor sitting on there. It looks just like her, it sounds just like her. So no longer, we used to tell people if money gets exchanged, do a face-to-face. You have to do a face-to-face in a real person, because there was an instance where over in the UK, a banker, vice president of a bank, worked with this company for 35 years, knew the CEO's voice. Got a phone call, says, I want you to transfer $35 million from our business to my personal. Did that? It wasn't. It was a bad actor that was using the dark AI voice. We get sounded just like that. So again, you just can't trust anybody in our world. It's sad. You want to trust people, you just can't. So one of the things that you should have in place again is policy. What's going to happen if I get breached? If you have a list of numbers, who's the first one you call? You should have policies for bring your own device, which a lot of people are using their cell phones. So and if they get company email on there, you've got to check that. You have to have what we call BYOD policy. Data loss policies, retention policies. Again, cyber insurance companies were starting to ask me. I spent 2 weeks on this. We don't keep anything on site, so I was known with that. Password policy. Again, how long are the passwords? We can send we have 12 to 15 characters. So these are things that you should have in place. This makes it in cases of incidents much easier. And again, these are policies that we can help you with as well. Data management. Backup and verify your data. I can't tell you how many times in old days when we had tape backup, you back up data, you go to restore, and you can't read the tape. So your heart just sinks. Then you scramble, what can I read? Or the last good backup was 2 weeks ago. Now you have to figure out how you're going to make a 2 week for the data. So fortunately, we moved away from tape to a diskless or memoryless type backup. So all the data we do is encrypted. Again, it's your data, the insurance company called data at rest is encrypted. How can the backup perform and all these there? Always, you should always vet your vendor. And no one ever thinks about that. The Target breach years ago was because their HVAC vendor was they didn't take security seriously. So this is the comprehensive stack that we talk about when we talk about cybersecurity. These are all the tools stacked up. Monitor 24/7. So this is what you should all encompass. It's expensive, but then again, if you get breached, this is relatively small compared to what you're going to have to pay out. So as I wind down, these are 4 things that are free that you can take away today that aren't going to cost you anything. Implement two-factor authentication. Keep your systems patched and updated. Microsoft rolls out patches at least once a week. Install those. Don't just put them off. Remember the SLAM method for checking the email. Sender language, attachment, and message. Sender link, attachment message. Trust no one, verify everything. So as we wind down, I couldn't get my transition to work. So these are, if you guys are interested in knowing more from us, you can scan a QR code for a discovery call. We'd be happy to answer any questions. And we've got a quiz online if you want to take. It's just 10 questions. How much are you at risk? Kind of bounce it through. And so, if you want to, like I said, if you want any more information from us, just schedule a call. We'd be happy. Someone else would be happy to take that call and answer any questions. That's it for me. I know it's pretty fast, but
That was good, Chuck. Thank you so much.
yeah, trying to keep it an hour or so.
You did a great job. And Chris, thank you for the insurance update. And I think Leslie, I think she left us. I don't know about everyone else who's listening, but my heart kind of sank. Oh, you're still with us, Leslie. Thanks for being there.
I am still with you.
Great. Thanks for your presentation. It was super interesting. I have to say, I'm a little bit, what is the word? I don't know, frightened by all of this. And, but I think, a pound of prevention is worth an ounce of cure. Is that the expression?
Unfortunately, it's the world we live in. It's just the way it
The
is.
other way around.
It's easy money, easy money.
Oh, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. There you go.
If we follow,
Go ahead, Leslie.
If we follow best practices that Chuck talked about and get insurance, and to the insurance coverage that you get what you need. You'll be protected. You don't
Yeah.
have to worry as much, right?
Right. Yes, exactly. And just be really aware of everything. You know, don't open emails if you don't think it's from somebody that you know, don't open it.
Or
Right.
it's,
You know,
it's
don't
somebody that
click on
doesn't, that
links.
typically send you an email. Just a,
Yeah.
for example, just a typical business email compromise, minimum $10,000 to clean up.
Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah. And the other thing that you want to make sure, if you do decide to buy a policy to transfer some of that risk, it doesn't mean that you don't control the risk anymore. It doesn't mean that you don't have somebody like Chuck come in and help you, because I mean, you're still responsible to try to mitigate and keep those breaches from happening. So it's still a responsibility with or without the policy. So
Right. Thank
Yeah.
you. And I would
you
imagine.
don't want to wind
Go
up on the wall of shame. State of Oregon's actually got a website that if you get breached, you go on there.
Oh, wow. I would imagine though, if you have a security breach, are you insurable again a second time?
So
Depends on the
that's a great, it really depends on the
Yeah.
carrier.
Yeah.
You know, it's if you have a security breach, but you never filed a claim, you know, the
Yeah.
same underwriting rules apply. If you file a claim and it's really bad, it really
Yeah.
depends. I mean, we've been able to continue to write policies, even though there's been claims. I think where the real issue comes down is whether or not there's some negligence on the part of the person of the business owner
Right.
or the owner of the policy to do their due diligence in trying to protect themselves. So if they don't have the their system up to date, with security patches that are required to prevent some of these breaches, you're going to see carriers not really want to take the chance of protecting them with a policy or enter into an agreement with them. So
Right.
it really is up to the business owner to say, hey, I'm doing what I can to prevent these breaches, but in case it does happen, we want you to step in and take the liability, and they're willing to do that. I mean, that's what they get paid to do, and that's why you pay them premium, and that's how it works.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just
Thank you,
keep in
Chris.
mind, I mean, no longer is it just antivirus keep machines pat. There's a whole lot more to it. And like Chris was saying, if you have cybersecurity insurance and you breach and you make that call your insurance agent, and everything's under them, they dictate every step of the way after that. Just like if your car gets wrecked and you call your insurance agent.
There are policies too that provide or I guess breach consultation. So and they'll help you walk through what's happened. You may not even have to file a claim. Like sometimes it's just part of their service. It's part of the premium that you're paying, is that they're going to help kind of consult on like how bad is this, and whether or not you need to file a claim. So they can help you prevent filing a claim that really isn't going to need to be filed. So but every policy is different. And that's why it's good to talk to an agent first before you
Well, true. I mean,
buy.
and like Chris was saying, I mean, they want to come in and make sure you're locked down because they don't want to have to pay out either.
Mhm.
It's a no-win for everybody all the way around, except for the bad guys. And keep in mind, all these systems that are out there, they're all automated. You don't have somebody just pulling your business out of the blue. It's just automated. They load up their database, hit the key, and walk away. They probably,
Wow.
they probably do work just a few hours a week and collect millions.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting. Okay. All righty. Well, I thank you for this informative session. I'm thinking about all of the things in my life that I need to probably go and fix now and change personally. And also just, our business community here at the chamber, et cetera. Thank you for helping us understand this.
Two factors.
Yes.
And it's free.
Yeah.
2 factors.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
That reduces your risk by 94%.
Wow.
That's why
Okay.
that's why everybody's doing it. And I
Yep.
know if it's annoying, you
No,
know,
it isn't.
as a consumer, yes, it
Yep.
is.
Yep.
You know, I gotta log in, I gotta
Yep.
click the little
Yeah, but
button on my
once it
phone
becomes
and
routine, it's not so bad.
yeah,
I
it's
mean,
really not
we
that
do it
bad.
every day. I can't say we have that every day.
Yep.
Yeah.
Everything we
Yep.
have to.
No, it's annoying, and yet you
You have
know
to-
why you're doing it, right?
Exactly. That's
Yeah,
why
yeah.
you have to think of it differently than just
Yeah.
a hassle. It's like, this is protecting,
Yep.
protecting us. So.
Yes,
And I would
exactly.
like to speak up.
Yeah.
Yes.
I thought this was very informative. Once the recording's up, I'm going to suggest many people watch it. It would be nice if we could accompany it with a simple handout, just because there was so much covered. But
We
I
could do that
found
for
it
next
very
time, Mark, yeah.
useful.
Actually, I've got some handouts that are coming. They just weren't here.
And we can
I
post